Welcome to the Death Meter, where we dissect the fatal flaws of your favorite characters, one poor decision at a time. In this video, we're diving into the twisted world of Saw, a franchise built on blood, betrayal, and bad decisions. From detectives who should have known better to victims who sealed their own fates, we're taking a closer look at the choices that led them straight to their gruesome ends. Who made the dumbest moves? Who deserved what they got? And who, despite everything, might have actually stood a chance? Stick around as we break it all down from the first misstep to the last heartbeat. And remember, when you're trapped in Jigsaw's world, even the smallest mistake can be your last. Let's begin with Detective Singh. The first domino in his fatal sequence was trusting Detective Tap's instincts and deciding to storm one of Jigsaw's suspected hideouts. No warrant, no backup, just two detectives against the embodiment of cold, calculating evil. In fairness, they didn't have concrete proof this was Jigsaw's lair, just some graffiti and a video and the sound of a fire alarm. Hardly evidence to call in a SWAT team. But rushing in without staking it out? That was the first cut that would bleed out into tragedy. Singh's next misstep was letting Jigsaw step off the elevator and into their trap without acting. There's something haunting about that moment. Jigsaw, a man responsible for unimaginable suffering, walking into the room as if he owned it. They could have ended the nightmare right there, but Singh hesitated, listening to Tap's plan to wait and see. What they ended up seeing was Jigsaw setting his trap, a lesson in hesitation written in blood. But the mistake that sealed Singh's fate? Choosing to chase Jigsaw. It's almost poetic, really, a desperate pursuit. The adrenaline pounding in his ears, overriding all logic. Jigsaw became the only thing he could see. Not the traps, not the risk, just the man he had to catch. And when he finally caught up, when the bullet he fired tore through Jigsaw's back, it was too late. His tunnel vision led him straight into the jaws of death. Singh was flawed, yes, but his mistakes were born of human error, not hubris. He wasn't a fool, just a man in over his head. For that, he earns a 4 out of 10 on the Death Meter. Now for Detective Tap. Tap wasn't just the senior detective on the case, he was the architect of their downfall. It was his decision to go into the warehouse without a warrant or backup, a reckless move that felt more like desperation than strategy. And when Jigsaw entered the scene, it was Tap's idea to let him move freely, to watch instead of act. That decision alone cost them everything. But Tap's gravest sin came when he faced Jigsaw directly. He had the monster cornered, dead to rights, but in a moment of distraction, a single heartbeat, he let Jigsaw escape. The scene plays like a cruel joke, the killer on his knees, vulnerable, and Tap failing to act decisively. Jigsaw rewarded his hesitation by slicing his throat, a wound that cut far deeper than flesh. Even later, when Tap was staking out Gordon's apartment, his decisions continued to spiral into ruin. Hearing gunshots, he stormed in, and his failure became almost comical. Zepp lying exposed on the floor, Tap missing every shot, and his ammo running out after a pitiful few rounds. Was he unprepared, or simply cursed to fail? When Tap chased Zepp to the final location, it was as if fate was laughing in his face. After all his errors, all his missed opportunities, the final act saw him gunned down like an afterthought. A lifetime of poor decisions led him here, and his death was as inevitable as it was pathetic. For his unparalleled incompetence, Tap earns a 10 out of 10 on the Death Meter. Let's move to Zepp. Zepp is the kind of man who deserved his fate, though maybe not in the way Jigsaw intended. The film never explains why he was chosen, but perhaps it doesn't matter. His actions during the game, gleefully terrorizing Gordon's family, reveal a man who thrived on the power he was given, however temporary. His greatest mistake was believing Jigsaw. Poisoned, manipulated, and promised an antidote only Jigsaw could provide, Zepp didn't even consider the possibility that this was all a lie. Instead of seeking help at a hospital, he played along, thinking he could outlast the poison. It was the kind of blind faith that seals one's fate. Zepp's failure to restrain Gordon's wife properly set off the chain of events that led to his downfall. Once the scuffle broke out, his control slipped away. The ensuing gunfight with Tap, a pathetic exchange where neither man landed a single hit, was almost laughable if it weren't so tragic. Even when Zepp had Tap at his mercy, he chose not to finish him off. A vase to the head was all he managed before running to the final confrontation, where his story ended with a whimper. Zepp wasn't clever, resourceful, or even particularly lucky. He was a pawn pretending to be a player, and his incompetence earns him an 8 on the Death Meter.
Thank you for that information, Zeb.
Next up is Adam. Let's start with how he got himself into this mess. When the power went out in his apartment, he decided the best course of action was to wander around in the dark, investigating strange noises with nothing but his camera flash. Brilliant plan, right? Instead of running out of his apartment to call for help, he played right into Jigsaw's hands. He lives alone, no family to protect, so there was absolutely no reason to stick around. This doesn't affect whether he survives the game, but it's worth pointing out when Adam was spying on Gordon and taking photos, he left the flash on his camera. Rookie move. If subtlety was the goal, he failed spectacularly. Once in the game, Adam's objective was simple: survive. But instead of focusing on that, he kept helping Gordon, even when it wasn't in his best interest. Let's not forget his laughable attempt to fake being poisoned. He didn't know what kind of poison it was, how long it would take to act, or even how convincing his performance was supposed to be. Adam's impulsiveness didn't stop there. Smoking the cigarette Jigsaw left for him? Bold move, but not in the way he intended. And while his distractions probably didn't doom Gordon entirely, they certainly didn't help. Whether it was bringing up Gordon's family or some other tangent, Adam kept pulling Gordon's focus away from the game, sabotaging him in small but significant ways. I'll give Adam credit for one thing. He did technically beat Jigsaw's game, but Jigsaw left him to rot anyway, so it's hard to argue he ever had a real chance. For his sheer impulsivity and lack of critical thinking, I'm giving Adam a 9 on the death meter. Finally, Dr. Gordon. If anyone had the tools to survive, it was Gordon. A doctor, a man trained to think logically under pressure, and yet his choices often felt like the frantic flailing of a drowning man. His biggest flaw was wasting precious time reliving backstories instead of focusing on the brutal simplicity of Jigsaw's game. Kill or be killed. Gordon's one redeeming moment, cutting off his foot and shooting Adam, came too late. By then, the game had already ended, and his victory was hollow. Even his medical knowledge failed him, as evidenced by the pitiful excuse for a tourniquet he fashioned. Infection, blood loss. His fate was sealed the moment he picked up that hacksaw. Gordon's journey is a study in missed opportunities and half measures. He wasn't incompetent, just unprepared for the horrors he faced. For that, he earns a 7 on the death meter.
What are you, fucking stupid?
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like on the video. Also, let me know how you would rate each character. And remember, if you have to go digging around a toilet filled with shit, check the back first.
I really wish I had checked in there first.